The Scottsdale ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers, polished tables reflecting the soft glow of anticipation. The air buzzed with the low murmur of the crowd, donors, journalists, socialites, all gathered for what they expected to be an evening of performance, bravado, and applause. Yet no one could have predicted the words about to shatter the evening's decorum. Trump stepped up to the podium, his presence commanding, a mix of arrogance and theatrical certainty. The room held its breath. Then, like a thunderclap cutting through the serene hum, he spoke. "He's the worst thing that ever happened. Total fraud. Should be in jail." Silence struck first, a sharp, disbelieving pause. Then murmurs escalated to shocked laughter, nervous whispers, and the frantic clicking of phones capturing every syllable. Within seconds, the moment was immortalized in grainy cell phone footage, the kind that spreads like wildfire through every social feed, every group chat. Hashtags erupted. "Had jail," he said. "Scottsdale shock," "fraud claim," trending nationally in real time. Screens lit up across living rooms and offices, each notification ping a reminder that the spectacle had escaped the ballroom walls, igniting a digital wildfire. Camera angles bounced between the stunned faces in the crowd and Trump's unapologetic smirk, creating a tension that could be felt across states, across screens. Viewers at home felt the same shock as if they had been in that very room. The line between private gala and national incident blurred with every share, every retweet, every shocked emoji reaction. Even as outrage simmered, there was a strange magnetism. People couldn't look away. Political pundits scrambled to provide context, late-night hosts paused mid-joke, and social media influencers amplified every word with disbelief and glee. The world was watching. And in that instant, the rules of engagement shifted. No longer just a fundraiser, no longer just a speech. This was a battlefield where reputations would be forged or shattered. And the next move would redefine the very nature of political confrontation. Little did anyone know, what came next would not just answer the insult, but reshape the narrative entirely, setting the stage for a counterattack that would echo far beyond Scottsdale, leaving the nation holding its breath, waiting for the fallout. The private fundraiser had been billed as another routine evening, a gathering of wealth, influence, and applause. Crystal glasses clinked, servers moved with precision, and the chatter of political gossip filled the air. Yet beneath the surface, the audience was anything but ordinary. High-profile donors exchanged knowing glances, journalists adjusted microphones, and aides whispered nervously about the unpredictability of the man at the podium. Trump had built a reputation not just for showmanship, but for provocation, each incendiary statement carefully timed, each insult a spark thrown into a powder keg of public opinion. As he delivered the words that would echo across the nation, the stakes suddenly became clear. This wasn't merely an insult tossed into a room of polite applause. It was a deliberate challenge, a strike aimed at the very perception of leadership, truth, and accountability in America. Every syllable carried weight far beyond the polished walls of the ballroom. The American public, watching from living rooms, phones, and offices, would be forced to confront the question, what does it mean when the highest-profile figures weaponize words to rewrite reality? The tension was palpable. In the shadows of the venue, Obama's legal team sat quietly, a composed contrast to the chaos on stage. They were not visible to the cameras, yet their presence was felt. Each attorney, each advisor, represented a calculated restraint, a patient, almost surgical readiness, and they were poised, knowing the moment for a decisive response would arrive, but letting the storm gather around the provocateur first. The audience in the ballroom, enthralled by spectacle, had no inkling of the silent power gathering in the background. The legal minds quietly preparing a counter that could upend the evening entirely. For those following on social media, the situation was even more volatile. Every clip, Every live-streamed reaction, every hashtag created a ripple in a sea of opinion, turning a private insult into a national event. The audience online was polarized, yet unified in their need to witness the next move. Some debated legality, others morality, but all were gripped by anticipation. What would happen? Who would falter first? Could civility, dignity, and truth withstand the onslaught of public spectacle? And yet the suspense was only beginning. The ballroom, the feeds, the hashtags, all pointed to a looming revelation. What happened next left the entire country in disbelief. The world seemed to hold its breath, teetering on the edge of a moment that promised to redefine political confrontation, accountability, and the very idea of consequence. Every viewer, every journalist, every citizen was drawn into the unfolding drama, waiting to see if arrogance would meet its match, if provocation would finally meet justice, or if history itself would be rewritten in real time. In that quiet tension, in the careful contrast between a man commanding attention and a team quietly strategizing, the stakes had never been higher. This was no longer just political theater. It was a test of leadership, of moral authority, and of the American ideal itself. And as the night deepened, the nation braced for the response that would not merely reply, but redefine the battlefield entirely. For decades, Donald Trump had mastered the art of spectacle. From the glitzy stages of reality television to the gilded halls of political rallies, he had built an empire not just on wealth, but on attention itself. Every word, every gesture, every tweet seemed calculated to provoke, to shock, and to dominate the narrative. To some it was bravado, to others sheer entertainment. But beneath the charisma and confidence lay a pattern, an unrelenting reliance on exaggeration, hyperbole, and a self-serving version of truth that often left reality bending in his wake. At the Scottsdale fundraiser, this pattern unfolded in real time. When he delivered the insult, calling Obama the worst thing that ever happened, total fraud, should be in jail, reactions were immediate and polarized. A segment of the room erupted in applause, cheers mingling with laughter, caught up in the thrill of confrontation. They saw it as victory, a reaffirmation of loyalty, and a display of audacity. Others, however, recoiled in discomfort. Brows furrowed, whispers spread across the polished tables, and some guests exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that words, once released, carry consequences far beyond the confines of a ballroom. Trump's arrogance was evident not just in the content of his statements, but in the timing and delivery. Every insult was punctuated with self-satisfaction, every smirk a silent assertion of dominance. He seemed to inhabit a reality where charm and bluster could override accountability, where provocation could be a shield against consequence. Yet even in this room of admirers and skeptics alike, cracks began to show. There was an undercurrent of uncertainty. How far could audacity go before it collided with law, with principle, with public judgment? This hubris was magnified by blind spots. While Trump thrived in the heat of spectacle, he often failed to anticipate the patient, methodical forces aligning against him. Legal teams, investigative journalists, and a vigilant public had learned to see past the bravado, to recognize the pattern beneath the theatrics. His confidence, so radiant and commanding, paradoxically became his vulnerability. Every boast, every insult, every tweet created a trail, a breadcrumb path leading toward scrutiny, challenge, and ultimately, accountability. The contrast in the audience mirrored the tension building across the nation. Some cheered, caught in the emotional high of a leader daring to attack the former president so openly. Others, scanning their phones, watched as hashtags exploded, clips went viral, and social media lit up with speculation. The applause of a few could not silence the judgment of the many, and yet, in that moment, Trump seemed untouchable, larger than the room, larger than the consequences themselves. The arrogance was magnetic, but it was also perilous. Behind the public spectacle, the seeds of poetic justice were quietly being sown. His overconfidence blinded him to the meticulous preparation waiting in the shadows, the legal strategists who would not be rushed, the meticulous plans ready to turn hubris into downfall. Yet, no one in that room could predict exactly how the confrontation would unfold. Even as the audience laughed, cheered, or recoiled, the true weight of the insult, and the storm it would unleash, had only begun to take shape. Trump, in his element, remained oblivious to the rising tide of consequence. His arrogance painted him as a hero to some and a villain to others, but the true power of this moment lay not in immediate applause, but in the inevitability that even the boldest showmanship can collide with truth. The stage was set, the hero in waiting was preparing, and the country itself was holding its breath, sensing that this was not just another political spat, it was a confrontation that would leave history itself unsettled. Every smirk, every exaggerated gesture, every boastful jab contributed to the narrative of hubris. And in that narrative, the lines between invincibility and vulnerability blurred, leaving one thing certain: the stage was ready for a reckoning, and the villain, for all his confidence, had unwittingly positioned himself for a confrontation that could unravel everything. Barack Obama's story was never one of inevitability. It was a narrative shaped by perseverance, intellect, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Born to modest beginnings, navigating the complexities of identity in a world often resistant to difference, he learned early that resilience was not optional, it was survival. Each step of his journey, from the neighborhoods of Honolulu to the corridors of Ivy League institutions, was marked by a careful balance of ambition and principle, a recognition that leadership demanded both vision and moral grounding. Public service became more than a vocation. It was a calling. Obama's work in community organizing revealed his ability to see beyond immediate circumstances, to understand the struggles of everyday people, and to translate empathy into action. He cultivated a strategic mind, a skill that allowed him to anticipate challenges, to navigate obstacles, and to turn complex problems into actionable solutions. Whereas others relied on instinct alone, he paired insight with patience, deliberation with courage, and planning with moral clarity. Even in the highest offices, he maintained a calm, measured presence that contrasted sharply with chaos. Every public appearance, every debate, every speech carried a sense of thoughtful authority. He understood the weight of words, the power of precedent, and the long arc of history. Where others sought headlines through provocation, he focused on principle, knowing that influence was built not on spectacle, but on enduring trust. Obama's moral compass guided him through the noise of politics, providing a steady counterbalance to impulses that might otherwise derail judgment. He cultivated a strategic mind, a skill that allowed him to anticipate challenges, to navigate obstacles, and to turn complex problems into actionable solutions. Whereas others relied on instinct alone, he paired insight with patience, deliberation with courage, and planning with moral clarity. Even in the highest offices, he maintained a calm, measured presence that contrasted sharply with chaos. Every public appearance, every debate, every speech carried a sense of thoughtful authority. He understood the weight of words, the power of precedent, and the long arc of history. Where others sought headlines through provocation, he focused on principle, knowing that influence was built not on spectacle, but on enduring trust. Obama's moral compass guided him through the noise of politics, providing a steady counterbalance to impulses that might otherwise derail judgment. Empathy was not a weakness, it was a tool, allowing him to read people, anticipate reactions, and navigate the human landscape of power. He approached crises not as a stage for self-aggrandizement, but as a responsibility, a chance to act decisively while remaining true to his values. It was this combination of experience, patience, and ethical clarity that made him formidable, not because he sought confrontation, but because he understood its stakes and was prepared to meet them with precision. The contrast with Trump could not have been starker. One wielded words as weapons, relying on shock and spectacle, driven by impulse and ego. The other employed them as instruments of clarity, measured and intentional, each sentence a carefully considered step toward a broader goal. Where arrogance dictated one's actions, empathy and strategy guided the other. Where hubris created vulnerability, wisdom created opportunity. And while one operated in the spotlight of immediate reaction, the other prepared in the shazkaz, dows, waiting for the precise moment when preparation could outweigh bravado. In private, away from cameras and social media scrutiny, Obama's team worked quietly, analyzing every angle, every possible outcome. Legal advisors, communications experts, and trusted allies anticipated the fallout from Scottsdale's incendiary remarks. Every response was measured, every message crafted to ensure not only justice, but clarity. The groundwork was meticulous, reflecting a leadership style that understood the power of preparation and the inevitability of consequence. But beyond strategy, it was character that defined the hero. A lifetime of navigating complex challenges had instilled a sense of moral responsibility, a recognition that power without principle was hollow. Obama's ability to remain grounded, to act decisively without haste, and to balance empathy with strategy made him more than a former president. It made him a force capable of reshaping the narrative entirely. He carried the weight of history and the hopes of millions, but he bore it with the calm confidence of someone who had faced adversity before and emerged stronger. As the nation watched the viral clips, debates flared online, and pundits speculated endlessly, a quieter, more potent force was preparing. Every move, every countermeasure was informed not by ego, but by experience and principle. The hero did not rush. He did not react impulsively. He waited, knowing that timing, precision, and clarity were the true tools of influence. In the contrast between spectacle and strategy, between arrogance and wisdom, the stage was set for a confrontation that went far beyond personality. This was about accountability, truth, and the stewardship of public trust. Obama's calm strategic thinking, moral grounding, and careful preparation positioned him as the hero ready to meet the challenge, poised to strike not in anger, but with the precision of experience and the weight of justice. And as the country waited, holding its breath over every new clip, every trending hashtag, the sense of inevitability grew. The Scottsdale ballroom still hummed with the residual energy of champagne glasses clinking and chandeliers shimmering, but a new electric tension had settled over the crowd. It began with the words themselves, each one dripping with provocation. "He's the worst thing that ever happened. Total fraud. Should be in jail." The syllables landed like thunderclaps, bouncing off polished walls and ricocheting in the ears of an audience, half cheering, half shocked. Some laughed nervously, trying to match the bravado, while others recoiled, instinctively sensing that this moment carried consequences far beyond the glittering room. Phones came alive as if guided by instinct. Grainy footage captured the eruption, shaky hands framing a scene that would soon become indelibly etched across timelines, news cycles, and group chats. Within minutes, hashtags like #Scottsdale, "Shock" and "Trump insults Obama" began trending, each tap of a screen spreading outrage and fascination in equal measure. Viewers across the country watched, riveted, as the words replayed, shared, and dissected. The immediacy was mesmerizing, the spectacle intoxicating, and yet beneath the surface, a storm was silently gathering. On television panels, pundits leaned forward, voices quickening with a mix of disbelief and opportunism. "Legally, this could be unprecedented," one commentator said, while another countered, The optics are disastrous. Trump may have overstepped here. Online, the debate was relentless. Twitter feeds exploded, TikTok reactions poured in, and news websites ran real-time updates, each clip magnifying the moment's intensity. The crowd in Scottsdale seemed almost oblivious to the wider consequences, lost in the dual thrill of scandal and performance. But the country watched, collectively gripping their screens as the words reverberated far beyond the room. The tension escalated further, as and when. Analysts parsed every nuance. Legal scholars dissected the insult, considering defamation angles and implications for public accountability. Former officials debated whether words alone could provoke such a rapid, high-stakes response. Each passing minute ratcheted the pressure higher. The narrative was spiraling, moving faster than any individual could fully control. The spectacle of power had collided with the mechanisms of consequence, and the nation found itself suspended in anticipation. And yet, while chaos swirled in plain view, the hero remained unseen. Behind closed doors, Obama's team worked methodically, absorbing every clip, every viral post, every trending headline. Unlike the flurry of reactive energy on social media, their focus was deliberate, precise, and unhurried. The hero's presence was felt not in noise or flash, but in the quiet assurance that a carefully measured response was already taking shape. Each passing moment was a setup, a pause pregnant with promise, amplifying the suspense. Back in Scottsdale, the reactions of the live audience reflected the polarizing effect of the moment. Some attendees exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that the insult might have consequences far beyond their private amusement. Others leaned into the drama, cheering, laughing, or filming, unable to look away from the unfolding spectacle. Cameras and phones captured it all, creating a feedback loop of visibility, tension, and social validation that would dominate discussions for hours, days, and weeks to come. The hero's advantage was preparation. While chaos ruled the public eye, strategy dominated in the shadows. The anticipation of a counterattack was invisible yet palpable, creating a magnetic suspense that gripped viewers even as they debated, shared, and reacted. The Scottsdale moment was no longer a single incident. It had become a flashpoint, a signal that a confrontation was imminent and that the rules of engagement were about to be rewritten. As the night deepened, clips continued to circulate, pundits amplified their commentary, and the social feeds glowed with relentless energy. And somewhere in the calculated silence beyond the public gaze, a hero prepared to act, turning outrage into strategy, spectacle into leverage, and provocation into the precise moment where justice could be delivered. The nation watched, leaning closer, sensing that what came next would leave no one untouched, redefine expectations, and reshape the narrative entirely. 17 seconds. 17 seconds after the words had been unleashed, after the insult had rippled across Scottsdale, across social media feeds, across news channels in every corner of the country, a quiet storm erupted in a courtroom miles away. 17 seconds, and the gears of justice had already begun to turn with a speed and precision that stunned even the most seasoned political observers. The defamation lawsuit, a $100 million declaration of accountability, was filed with meticulous care, each page stamped, each signature verified, each clause calibrated to hit with maximum legal force. Inside the law offices, the scene was a masterclass in orchestration. Phones buzzed, printers whirred, clerks moved with synchronized urgency, and assistants scanned, filed, and transmitted documents with the efficiency of a military operation. Every team member knew their role. No hesitation, no wasted motion. It was a ballet of strategy, a choreography of consequence executed under the pressure of real-time viral chaos. The filing was swift, decisive, and devastatingly clear. Words have weight, and the era of unchecked provocation had collided with a hero ready to respond with unflinching precision. Back in Scottsdale, the first murmurs of awareness began to spread. Someone in the crowd checking a phone froze. Another glanced up from a tweet, eyes widening. Clips of the filing made their way onto social feeds in real time. Hashtags exploded. #mic drop, #Obama fires back, #justice served. The nation paused to witness a moment that felt cinematic even in its reality. A story arc unfolding live, with suspense, stakes, and spectacle intertwined. The audacity of the response was breathtaking. The speed, almost surreal. Social media erupted in waves. GIFs, videos, and threads multiplied exponentially, each depicting the shock, awe, and disbelief of the moment. Reactions poured in from every corner. Political commentators gasped, journalists scrambled to cover the unfolding drama, and citizens shared their amazement, disbelief, and admiration. A montage of faces flashed across screens, some cheering, some incredulous, some nodding in approval. Every expression reflected the gravity of what had just occurred. The counterattack had transformed a spectacle into a seismic shift, the narrative bending toward accountability and moral courage. Meanwhile, the villain, the orchestrator of the insult, was beginning to crumble. Advisors leaned in, whispering frantically, red faces flushing under the harsh glare of reality. The overconfidence that had fueled the Scottsdale moment began to falter under the weight of an immediate and overwhelming countermeasure. Confusion and incredulity mingled in the air like smoke. Each phone alert, each notification, each media update was a reminder that the world had shifted while he remained, for a fleeting moment, exposed and vulnerable. The arrogance that once seemed untouchable now revealed its fatal flaw: underestimation of a hero's strategy, and the power of measured, decisive response. Cinematic pacing dominated the unfolding story. Pauses punctuated the narrative. Seconds stretched like hours as both sides absorbed the immediate consequences. Close-ups of court documents, of emails hitting inboxes, of legal stamp, striking paper, captured the intensity of action in minutiae. Internal thoughts flickered across faces: disbelief, calculation, dread, determination. The audience witnessed a real-time reversal, a narrative pivot that highlighted preparation, composure, and moral clarity over brash theatrics. Every shot, every frame of public and private reaction built toward an emotional crescendo. As Trump and his advisors scrambled to comprehend the scale and speed of the response, the contrast with the hero's composed team could not have been starker. Where panic reigned, calm prevailed. Where uncertainty lingered, precision guided every step. The hero had anticipated the storm, harnessed its energy, and delivered a response so immediate it left the aggressor exposed, unbalanced, and scrambling for damage control. The elegance of strategy met the force of consequence, and the audience, both live and virtual, felt the impact viscerally. Public reaction continued to intensify. News tickers updated frantically, pundits debated implications in real time, and social media feeds overflowed with commentary, analysis, and affirmation. Citizens from diverse backgrounds expressed admiration for the swiftness, courage, and clarity of the counterattack. The narrative had shifted, and the psychological weight of accountability pressed down unmistakably. It was a story of justice moving faster than spectacle, a reminder that words are not without consequence, and that deliberate, principled action can redefine the trajectory of a conflict. Even in the chaos, the hero's advantage lay in control. Every motion had been calculated, every timing perfected, and every reaction anticipated. The public saw only the ripple of action, the drama of unfolding events. But behind the scenes, the hero's calm dominance orchestrated the crescendo. The villain's hubris collided with an immovable force of preparation, and the result was a reversal that felt inevitable in hindsight. 17 seconds had changed the narrative, turning shock into empowerment, provocation into accountability, and spectacle into the triumph of measured action over impulsive bravado. As Scottsdale's audience processed the news, their reactions captured the human dimension of the moment. Faces of confusion, disbelief, and awe were mirrored in countless living rooms, offices, and cafes across the nation. Every retweet, every post, every comment carried the echo of the counterattack's impact, amplifying the story's reach and emotional resonance. The cinematic sweep of events, from insult to legal strike, had delivered a narrative punch that demanded attention, admiration, and reflection. The hero's emergence was now unmistakable. Every element, the rapid filing, the coordination, the precision, demonstrated mastery and moral authority. The villain, unprepared for the speed and clarity of the response, could only watch as the narrative shifted irrevocably. The audience, enthralled and emotionally invested, leaned in, sensing that justice, strategy, and courage had converged in a single, unforgettable moment. The Scottsdale insult was no longer just a scandal. It had become a turning point, a demonstration of how deliberate, decisive action can upend expectation, redefine confrontation, and deliver a moral reckoning that resonates far beyond the moment itself. Even as lawyers filed final documents, clerks confirmed timestamps, and media outlets amplified every detail, the narrative pulse quickened. The counterattack's cinematic sweep, rapid, precise, and emotionally charged, transformed perception. Social media continued to hum with astonishment. Pundits reeled from the audacity and timing. Citizens celebrated the hero's unwavering strategy. The story's reversal was complete, yet the suspense lingered. What consequences would unfold next? How would the villain recover, if at all? How would the nation reckon with the sheer force of accountability delivered with surgical precision? The moment concluded, yet the resonance persisted. 17 seconds had redefined the rules of engagement, elevated the stakes of public discourse, and illuminated the power of calm, deliberate strategy in the face of impulsive provocation. It was a narrative of heroism, justice, and moral clarity, leaving viewers captivated, inspired, and fully invested in the outcome. The mic drop counterattack was complete, but the echoes would ripple for days, weeks, and perhaps years. A reminder that in the theater of public life, courage, preparation, and decisiveness always leave a mark that no arrogance can erase. The Scottsdale incident didn't fade into the night. If anything, it exploded across every screen, device, and conversation, leaving a digital tremor that could be felt from coast to coast. Hashtags ignited like wildfire. #mic drop, #justice served, #Obama fires back, trending relentlessly across platforms. Memes proliferated with astonishing speed, each one a bite-sized commentary, a clever twist, or a satirical jab that captured the shock and awe of the moment. Clips of the filing, of stunned reactions, of advisors scrambling, were dissected frame by frame, slowed down, shared, and replayed in endless loops. Every swipe, every scroll, amplified the narrative, making it impossible to ignore. Experts weighed in with the kind of gravitas that only real-time crisis analysis could summon. Political commentators debated the legality and the optics, parsing each motion, each second, each word of the lawsuit. Celebrities joined the chorus, tweeting, posting, and amplifying the story to millions, their voices shaping public perception as much as the courts themselves. Talk shows ran segments dissecting not just the events, but the strategy behind them, the timing, the precision, the undeniable expertise on display. Opinions were polarized, but the conversation surged regardless. Even dissenters couldn't help but acknowledge the impact. The air was thick with analysis, speculation, and the thrill of witnessing a historic confrontation unfold in real time. Ordinary Americans became both audience and participant. In diners, coffee shops, classrooms, and living rooms, Conversation hummed with excitement. "Did you see that filing?" one person asked, eyes wide with disbelief, as others nodded and repeated clips they had just watched. Students dissected the sequence of events during breaks between classes. Teachers referenced it in discussions of civics and media literacy. Neighbors exchanged opinions over back fences. Every corner of everyday life became a forum for engagement, a platform for judgment and reflection. The event became more than news. It became cultural conversation, a shared touchstone that united and divided, provoked and entertained, inspired awe and reflection. Dialogue snippets captured the zeitgeist. "I can't believe it happened that fast," one diner whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. 17 seconds and it's done? That's insane," said a student, repeating the words as if they carried the weight of the world. "Finally, someone held them accountable," another added, voice carrying a mixture of triumph and relief. Social validation flowed in tandem with digital amplification. Likes, retweets, shares, reactions, creating a feedback loop that magnified both emotion and awareness. Ordinary voices, once silent observers, now participated in shaping the collective understanding of justice, strategy, and consequence. The ripple effect extended far beyond Scottsdale or the courtroom. Newsrooms buzzed with updates, talk radio lines flooded with callers, podcasts dissected every nuance, and opinion columns ran headline after headline. The conversation wasn't just about what happened, but what it meant. Accountability had been enacted with precision. Leadership had been tested. Morality had been measured against provocation. The event prompted citizens to question, reflect, and debate not just the figures involved,